I, 47, female, found out that my partner, 59, male, of 7 years had been secretly seeing another woman in a different city. It had been going on for at least 8 months before I figured it out. For years, he's been traveling around researching a book, and I guess he was changing his location settings on his iPad and leaving it at his hotel. I started to notice that sometimes my texts went unanswered for hours or my calls were ignored, and those were the times he was in that particular city. Sometimes his location didn't update for an entire day, staying stuck at the hotel. When I confronted him about it, he'd say he was just deep into his writing, or that his phone wasn't working right. Other times he'd say, "What do you mean?" I did reply. Or he'd claim he didn't want to bother me since I was so busy, even though it was me who had been calling and texting. He'd get frustrated with me for nagging and would tell me that he doesn't do that to me. When I asked what exactly he was researching in that city, he'd say, "You'd be so bored." And I'd push him, saying, "Try me." But he'd just avoid answering and masterfully change the subject. I had always felt secure in our relationship, so it took me a while to piece it all together. We don't live together, and I know that sounds odd to some people, but it works for us. We each have our own busy lives, and the arrangement fits. We live a short flight apart, so we see each other every couple of weeks. I don't visit him as often because I work Monday to Friday, while he's a writer with his own schedule. A couple of months ago, he went to that same city again, and this time, I kept an eye on his location. I figured out that either he forgot to spoof it, or he took the wrong device. I saw that he was at a house in a residential area near the hotel where he usually stays. He was there all afternoon and evening, not answering my calls or texts. I took a screenshot of his location and looked up the address. It didn't take long to find her. They were connected on social media, which was no surprise since he has a lot of followers but doesn't follow many people, yet he followed her. I still wasn't sure though, until I saw her Goodreads profile. Last year, she'd read the same books he had. I then checked our calendar, call, and text history during the times he had been in that city. I made a list of 6 trips where something didn't feel right. He was supposed to visit me and my family for Thanksgiving, and I debated what to do. When he showed up, I didn't confront him right away. I just asked, "Is there anything you want to tell me?" Over the next few days, I steered our conversations toward relationship topics, but he said nothing. He was affectionate and acted like his usual self. I was careful not to accuse him of an affair because he tends to flip out when he's accused of things he hasn't done. I didn't have solid proof, just gut feelings and things that didn't add up. I was hoping he'd open up and share on his own so I wouldn't have to force a confrontation. I thought we could approach it calmly together. I guess I was too scared. I ran out of ways to ask, so I asked him if he was still happy with our long-distance arrangement. He was planning to move in with me once his youngest kid graduated from college. He said everything was fine. When I took him to the airport for his flight home, I found out he wasn't flying home after all. He went to her city again without telling me. His location stopped updating once he was in the airport pickup area. 10 minutes later, I called him. Then again after 30 minutes, and after 45 minutes. The third time, he canceled the call right away. I texted him, "I know what you're doing." But the message didn't go through. The next morning, I emailed the woman. I simply said, "Hi, I'm my name, so-and-so's partner. He left here yesterday and turned off his location when he landed. Is he with you?" A couple of hours passed, and then my text, "I know what you're doing," finally went through but showed as unread. That's when it hit me. This was real. He really was having an affair. I had a panic attack, and my hands went numb. I had trouble breathing. I was like that on and off for 2 days. Thankfully, the physical panic has mostly subsided, but I still shake when I think about it, and I'm having trouble sleeping. I'm trying to get an appointment with a therapist because I know I need help processing all of this. I stopped sharing my location with him and removed him from Find My. It really bothered me not knowing exactly what had happened. I wanted to hear him explain it to me so I could stop obsessing over the details. So, I kept calling him. On day 3, he finally answered. He was back home, and the first thing he did was yell at me for contacting her. He said I violated her privacy. He asked why I didn't talk to him first, and I told him I tried. I asked him to tell me what was going on and what his relationship with her was, but he wouldn't. He was furious and said, "No, you tell me what you know first." Then he started to slowly spill the truth. He wouldn't give me any information unless I specifically asked about it, so I went through my list of dates. It took forever, and he kept getting more pissed, calling it an interrogation, but he didn't hang up on me. We talked for 2 hours before he finally said he was sorry for hurting me, but that apology only came after I pushed him to say it. It didn't feel real though, because most of the conversation was him explaining how he had to cheat because I neglected him and how unhappy he was. It was more like, "I'm sorry I hurt you, but you need to understand why I did it." He said the other woman showed him my email while he was at her place, and it led to a huge argument, but he stayed with her for the next 2 days to try to talk it out. He told me she forgave him. He said she knew he wasn't available as a partner, and she knew there was someone else in his life, but she didn't know the details. This didn't sit right with me, especially considering how devastated he says she is. He even said, "You dropped a bomb on her." I told him, "No, you dropped a bomb on both of us," and pointed out that it sounded like he had lied to her too. The word lied made him lose it. "Don't use that word. That's your story. You're not listening to mine." I've been a fool, and I feel dumb saying this, but we've been trying to reconcile over the phone for a month now. I told him my whole sense of reality is messed up after everything, and I'm trying to figure out what really happened so I can make sense of it, and hopefully heal. At first, I wanted to get his version of the story, but then I realized I wanted to stick around and see if he showed any real remorse. Then I thought maybe this is a wake-up call for our relationship, but maybe we can still make it work. Believe me, I'm questioning myself now, looking at why I even thought that and why I'd put myself through this. It took 2 weeks to get the details because he couldn't seem to remember the timeline or anything they did together. The only way I could get him to talk about specific encounters was by pointing out times from my calendar and our text history when he lied to me and asking him about those exact moments. I've gotten him to admit to about 10 encounters, and when I asked him if there were more, he said, "I don't think so." It's incredible how forgetful he is about the details. Several times, he flew her to meet him, even once in Europe, and he spoofed his location so I would think he was at home. He also had a second phone I didn't know about. When I expressed surprise at some of his trips, he said everything was last minute and spontaneous. He's frustrated with me for insisting on talking about his affair. He keeps asking, "When can we move on and get to the real issue?" Which, to him, is his unhappiness and my supposed neglect of him that led him to do it. He said he sought out a friendship with the other woman because he was lonely. He explained that their friendship turned romantic, and he didn't know how to stop it. In the beginning, he swore they were just friends until I asked, "Did you have sex with her?" And he admitted it. He said he didn't really want to travel with her but did because he couldn't travel with me. He insists she's not a serious relationship and that he still wants to be with me and go to couples counseling to work through our issues. One of the first things he told me when we got together years ago was how important trust and fidelity were to him. We were on the same page about that. We're not married, but we've been exclusive. We share locations, and if I go somewhere in the evening, I send him a photo of who I'm with. If I go somewhere unusual, he calls or texts right away. I thought this was love, but now I'm wondering if it was more about control and projection on his part. As far as I knew, we were in a committed relationship, but in the past couple of weeks he said, "Well, we aren't married," and that he didn't think of himself as being in an exclusive relationship. News to me. I've been trying to figure out his relationship with the other woman ever since the truth came out, and now I'm paying attention to every little thing he says while trusting my gut. A few days ago, he let something slip that she said to him, which made it clear they've still been in contact. When I asked him, "What is the nature of your current relationship with her?" He hesitated before admitting they're still in touch and talk on the phone every few days. He said he's helping her with some admin stuff he has experience with, and she's helping him see how wrong his actions were. I was angry but kept my cool and told him, as firmly as I could, I can't control what you do. I can't control whether you keep talking to her, but I can control what I'm willing to accept. If we're going to salvage this, I won't accept you continuing contact with her. He got upset and said that her friendship meant a lot to him, and that they started as friends. He didn't see why that couldn't continue. He told me, I need friends. You have friends, and I don't stop you from seeing them. I replied, this isn't just a friendship. This is a serious romantic relationship you've been carrying on with another woman behind my back, and then you lied to me about it. He doesn't like it when I use words like lied or cheated. The moment I do, he either starts talking over me or hangs up. He said when I use terms like that, I'm just telling my version of the story and not respecting his. I told him, well, you did lie to me. How am I supposed to trust you now? He shot back, if you can't trust me after all these years, we've got a serious problem. I reminded him that he destroyed our trust when he cheated, and we need to work together to rebuild it. I told him, you have to choose, end things with her or end it with me. You can't have both. We argued some more, and then he hung up. 2 hours later, he called to say he'd spoken to her, and she agreed to step back, while we tried to work things out. I didn't say anything, but the phrasing really struck me. She agreed to step back? Not him? This is when I messed up. I have his web hosting passwords from when I set up his website for him. I hadn't used them before because I knew it would be a huge betrayal, and I knew he'd be so angry we might never come back from it. But I decided I needed the truth, and then I would walk away. I went through all the email correspondence from the past year, and unsurprisingly, he was still lying to both of us. She had no idea he was involved with someone else until I sent her that email. He was the one who initiated the relationship and pursued her. I found out there were more meetings he hadn't told me about, and the trips they took weren't spontaneous. They were planned weeks ahead. He booked the trips, arranged the hotels, and bought her plane tickets. I found outgoing emails to her after D-Day, the helpful life admin stuff he'd mentioned, sharing links and articles, but there was no written relationship talk from him. I think he's been careful not to leave a paper trail. I realized he's also stopped replying to my emails, but I could still read her replies to his messages. It was clear they'd been spending the past month reconciling. He's all apologies and remorse with her while painting me as unstable and our relationship as shaky, on and off. She's been supportive, waiting for him to wrap things up with me so he can return to her with a clear conscience. I even found out they're planning to travel together this summer. I can't tell him what I know or how I know it. He might even try to press charges. I feel awful about myself for spying on both of them, but at least I finally have the truth. Now I'm taking what I know and cutting off all contact. That's my story. I don't want to hear any more of his. Okay, so I didn't walk away. Over the last 2 weeks, we haven't seen each other, but we've been talking on the phone almost every day. I never had any intention of reconciling, though. I was just trying to figure out what I needed to for my own peace of mind, and yeah, maybe also figuring out how to get back at him. But honestly, I couldn't come up with any solid revenge plans, and now, I've lost all interest in that. I get really confused when he talks to me, so I started recording the calls and listening to them afterward. Hearing them back, I can really hear how manipulative he is. It's been so helpful, though. It's given me a clearer understanding of the dynamic between us. I finally get what happened after all those months of living in this weird, distorted reality where he was lying to me. It feels like I'm getting some closure now. My self-esteem is so much higher than it was a month ago. All the research I've done on narcissism fits his behavior perfectly. I needed to understand him, so I did my best not to lose my cool while he went on and on about himself, his needs, his feelings, always circling back to him, and how everything that happened was somehow my fault. I kept thinking if I was just kind and loving enough, he'd eventually show some remorse. But nope. He still gets defensive when I call what he did cheating. He insists it wasn't cheating, it was him saving himself, or finding a way through. His only regret is that he got caught. Meanwhile, I kept reading his emails without him knowing. Maybe that was my form of revenge. He's never stopped talking to the affair partner, and continues lying to me about it. She's hurt, but he's managed to convince her that what they have is real and that she can trust him. And now he's planning to visit her this week while I'm away on a business trip. But get this, there are 2 other women. One he met in Paris last fall, and judging by the emails, they were intimate. He's planning to visit her after he's done with the affair partner. And the third woman? She's in another city, and he's just starting to groom her, exactly the same way he did with the affair partner and me, wowing her with his ability to fly in and sweep her off her feet. It's honestly stunning, and I couldn't look away. I've had enough. All this spying is taking a toll on my mental health, not to mention hearing his lies over and over. Finally, I blocked him. I told my mom and sister, and my best friends already know. I even changed the locks since he has a key. Now I'm wondering whether I should tell the other women. Should I send a group email? I have the affair partner's number, but not the others. I know the affair partner knows about me, since I told her, but she thinks our relationship is over. She sounds just as naive and insecure as I once was.